We could stay awake just to watch these movies. Watch him smile while she's sleeping, even if it's kinda creepy. We could spend our nights in happily ever after, and we'll cry at you completely forever. 'Cause every rom-com we come to just gets better and better. Don't want to apologize. We don't want to be harassed, 'cause we love rom-coms and romancing the podcast. 'Cause even though these films are trash, people fall in love so fast. Glad you're listening, babe, to Romancing the Podcast.
Thank you for tuning into Romancing the Podcast. You had us at hello. I'm Paige Wesley.
I'm Mikey Randolph.
And I'm Todd Schlosser. And this week we watched
27
Dresses. Now, Paige, this was your pick. Why did you pick this one?
I hate this movie so much. I hate it with every fiber of my being.
Give us a very high level of why you hated it.
If you can give us a short hate synopsis.
So the first time I saw this movie was, I believe, in college when I was living in the sorority house, and people were watching it like in the house. And I just remember that it was like the most popular movie for like a solid year and a half.
Really?
And I kept walking in on portions of it. And every time I would walk in and like stop and watch a bit of it, I was just like, this movie is a dumpster fire. What is going on? Everything about this movie offends me and my modern feminist sensibilities, and I hate it. And then it wasn't until a few years later that I caught the entire thing on TV. And I was like, how is this even worse than I imagined it to be? There's no way that the things that they're cutting out for TV would make this movie better.
Oh, wow.
And then I swore it off forever. And people try and defend this movie all the time, where I'll be like, yeah, I don't really like romantic comedies typically. And they're like, what about 27 Dresses? And I'm like, especially 27 Dresses. I cannot tell you how many people have tried to be like, but have you tried 27 Dresses? It's kind of like when I say, I don't really like Brussels sprouts, and they're like, have you tried it with bacon? And I'm just like, yes, it still tastes like farts. What do you want from me?
So, Mikey, have you seen this movie before?
I'm like Paige. I've seen scenes of it, but I had not like sat down and watched the whole thing.
So, first impressions, what did you think first time you saw it?
This is definitely the worst movie we've reviewed.
Oh, wow. You think it's worse than like How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days?
Oh, yeah.
I think it's not as funny. I don't think it's as funny.
Yeah,
I don't think there's any emotional like connection to the characters.
You think it's worse than The Lucky One?
The Lucky One was at least fun to watch.
Yeah. Okay. The Lucky One, I think, is a worse movie, but that makes it more fun to watch. I feel like this one walks that line between good watchable and so bad it's watchable that it's almost unwatchable.
That is where I fall for this movie.
Okay.
With this movie, where if it was slightly worse, it would be so funny because it was so bad.
Yeah.
That it would be watchable, like so bad it's good.
Yes.
Yeah, like I would totally watch The Lucky One again if somebody wanted to watch it.
Mikey, I would go to a screening of The Lucky One with you in a meetup group
Any day.
And 100% do a Q&A afterwards.
Every
that
day
sounds
of the week.
Awesome.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I would love that. So yeah, Paige, this actually does walk that line for me too, of it's not good enough to be watchable and it's not bad enough to also be watchable.
Yes,
So
agreed.
I did not love this movie, but there are two people in this movie that I love personally, and that's James Marsden and Judy Greer.
Judy Greer is the only good thing in this movie.
Right, and I'll admit James Marsden is not a good guy in this movie.
No, he's not a good guy.
He's horrible. But I've met James Marsden. He's a great, great guy. Judy Greer's awesome. So, like, I just love them as people. So I found this movie watchable because I loved some of the people in it. but not because of this movie at all. Although I will say Judy Greer is the character we should be following in this movie, not Katherine Heigl's character.
Judy Greer is my internal monologue watching this film.
Yeah. I think that's the only character that is well written.
Yes.
Because she gives good advice. She feels like a real rounded best friend character. I liked her a lot.
I liked her a lot as well.
Was she a best friend or was she a work friend?
That's the
Ooh.
tricky thing. I don't think Katherine Heigl has best friends because I think she is suffering from some serious mental illness. And
Same.
it makes it difficult for her to foster real relationships with people. And that's going to be an issue later in the movie.
So I have a pitch. At the end of this episode, when we talk about if they're still together, it needs to be about James Marsden and Katherine Heigl, but also if Judy and Katherine Heigl are still friends.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Because she quits at the end of this movie. So that would be the ultimate test of, are they work friends or friends?
Friends.
So let's just get into this fucking movie. Let's talk about it because it goes places quick.
Whew. We open on a wedding in 1986. And we have the craziest voiceover we've ever had on this show.
That's after the lucky one.
That's after the lucky
That's saying
one.
something, yeah.
The voiceover in this movie says, Mozart found his calling at age 5, composing his first minuet. Picasso discovered his talent for painting when he was 9. Tiger Woods swung his first club well before his 2nd birthday. And me, I was 8 when I found my purpose in life, which we reveal is to be a bridesmaid?
I thought due to the voiceover that her job would be wedding planner.
Same.
So the better ending to this movie is that that's her new job.
Yes, I love that.
We'll get to the ending later where we get next to no information about anything that happens. But I think that is a better, and to be honest, that's the movie The Wedding Planner.
That movie already exists.
Let's do that movie.
With Jennifer Lopez.
And we might end up doing it next week, Mikey. Wanky boy.
What?
He's been
Seriously?
teasing about his pick next week that is going to drive us crazy, Paige. I don't know.
I don't know.
You're going to find out soon enough.
Oh, boy.
Anyway, we find out via voiceover that this is their cousin Lisa's wedding. It's after their mom died and their dad wasn't doing great. And her
Yeah.
little sister needs her to take her to the girls' room where the bride, their cousin Lisa, rushes in with a stained dress.
Oh, I thought it was ripped.
It might be ripped. We don't get a good look at it. Either way, the dress is ruined and they use essentially part of her younger sister's dress, I believe it is, to
It's
fix
the ribbon in her
dress.
hair, guys.
No,
Yeah.
it's the bottom portion of her dress underneath the bustle of her dress. So they have like layers to their dresses and they weave part of her dress onto the back of the
Okay.
dress. The only joke in this movie that I feel like is intentional and successful is when the bride runs in and just says, shit, shit, shit. And they said, it's okay, we have cable. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, they tried. Yeah, okay.
The best joke in the movie comes 3 minutes into it.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So we cut to present day where we see Katherine Heigl trying on a dress and she looks great in it.
Yeah, it's a wedding dress.
It's a wedding dress. And she answers the phone to reveal that she is at another bride's fitting trying her dress on for her, which is insane.
That's got to be like bad luck, right?
You would never ever do that if you don't do that. Because even if you're the same size, wedding dress sizing is so crazy. And they cut and alter the dress to your specific measurements. So like if I'm a 6 and you're a 6 and we've got different cup sizes or band sizes or hip measurements, we may be the same size with completely different measurements. Never, ever, ever have someone else do your fitting. That's insanity. Now, she takes the dress and she's rushing through New York. Clearly, it's the day of the wedding, which is another crazy thing to have your fitting the day of the wedding. Bad news. She meets up with Judy Greer, whose hair is a hot mess.
It's all over the place. I love Judy Greer so much in everything she does.
And her hair isn't like a messy bun. And she's like, what? She said up, which is perfect.
Yeah.
Great. She's also got a bag of makeup for her. So, like, she came prepared not only for herself, but to literally do the entire bridal party.
She's an Enneagram 2, but not in a healthy way.
Yeah. They're also wearing confounding bridesmaids dresses.
But it's fine, Paige, because you can shorten it and wear it again.
See, I don't know if you guys have been in any weddings.
I mean, I've been to weddings. I've never worn a dress
Yeah,
to one,
I've
though.
rented a lot of tuxes and a lot
Same.
of suits.
Well, here's the thing with bridesmaids dresses, because they usually have to be altered. You almost never rent them. You almost always have to buy them, and then you're just stuck
Right.
with a dress that fit a theme. And so the bride always justifies it with like, don't worry, you could totally wear them again, or you could totally shorten it and wear them again. And I would say now the fashion for most people is to either have people just have a color and they buy their own dress in that color so that it is something they'll wear again, or just to have everyone in the same dress, but it's just a solid color and kind of a plain dress. That's a little more manageable. But these dresses, if you're buying an actual like bridesmaid's dress, they can be hundreds of dollars for something you're never going to wear again.
Yeah, it's ridiculous to ask your friends to do that.
This is why I didn't have bridesmaids. This is one of many reasons. So she gets to the wedding, they get into it, they're getting the bride ready, and the wedding happens, and she's clearly like watching her time during this wedding. And then she leaves as soon as the wedding's over, hops in a cab with another dress bag, and she's changing in the cab. She offers to pay him, I think it's $300 for the whole night.
It is $300, but every time he looks back in the rearview mirror, he
Right.
loses $20. And Mikey, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
If you had this same situation where you had to pay her $20 every time you looked in the rearview mirror, by the end of the night, how much money would you end up owing Katherine Heigl?
So I thought about this. She does not put a time limit on
She
the
does
glances.
not.
Mikey, you've got to drive. You've got to pay attention to the road.
Oh, it would be. First off, can we just take a second and just realize how insane it is not to just change in a
It's
bathroom?
time.
But the thing is, Mikey, she is like misdoubtfiring these weddings. She's
Yeah.
going from one to the other and having to change on the way because she's putting on a sari for the other wedding.
Right. Which you cannot put on in a car.
No, no, you cannot. And then she has to like change back into her bridesmaid's dress for the other wedding. So she's having to like do this on the fly.
Anyway, she arrives at the second wedding and the bride says, "Aren't these beautiful? You can shorten them and wear them again." Which, no, you can't. It's a sari. It's like a giant
I know.
thing of fabric.
That you wrap yourself in like a dress.
Yes, and have to like tuck and fold and pin, and it's a process and it is learned. And the fact that she's just like changing into the car, impossible.
Yeah.
So she's at the wedding, she's checking the time again, and then she's back to the other wedding, then back again. And she does this 3 or 4 times. The taxi driver does help her with the shoes.
Yeah, they did the Macarena in each one and the electric slide.
Yeah, it really is just her doing the same things at each wedding. And like the brides thanking her specifically for being such a big help with planning the wedding.
But also, and I just have this in my notes, I just wrote, "This is insane. This woman does not know how to set boundaries."
No, she doesn't. She
Yes.
doesn't know how to say no, Paige. She does learn how to say no in this movie, but not now.
That's true. Then she's helping the brides go to the bathroom, which is a real thing.
Is it? Because I wrote in my notes, is it a thing that you would have to help the bride
Yes.
pee?
Absolutely.
All right.
Your dress typically has a ton of layers, and you'll need help going to the bathroom because you'll need people to hold the dress up around you so that you can move to pee. Or you could be like me and have your dress specially tailored so that you could wear it with no shapewear and you could pee whenever you want, and you can eat as much as you want because it fits you and you don't have to like squeeze into it.
I feel like that's the way to go.
No regrets. They also ask, "Did you eat anything?" And we reveal that at least one of the brides has not eaten all day.
Yeah.
And that's actually a thing too. And if you see like on America's Funniest Home Videos and stuff, brides passing out, it's
Yeah.
because brides often don't eat that day.
Is it because they're trying to fit in their dress? Like, why would you not do that?
It's honestly, there's just too much to do and they don't have time.
Okay, I could see that.
And it was
Gotcha.
something that my mom, God bless her, had told me in advance of like, you are going to forget to eat that day. So you need to plan right now, a week before this wedding happens, when you're going to eat and make sure you have food so that you actually eat that day, or else you're going to get to like 10, 11 at night and you haven't eaten since the day before. And it's
Right.
just crazy. Anyway, they go to toss the bouquet at the first wedding, and she tries to catch it, and some girl like elbows her in the face.
Yeah, like knocks her to the ground. Like you would get like a high sticking penalty in hockey. Like it was like
Yes.
in her face, knocked her to the ground.
This is part of why I didn't toss a bouquet at my wedding.
Can I just say this? We know immediately that Kevin, who we're about to meet right here,
Yes.
is the worst.
Yes.
Because she is knocked to the ground, possible concussion, and he's like, hey, let me take you home.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't take a girl with a possible head injury home. You take her maybe to the hospital.
I think what we kind of notice in the movie is he can tell that she's going between multiple weddings. He has figured
Right.
it out. And I think it fascinates him and he wants to ask more questions. I don't
Yeah.
know that he
Yes.
necessarily wants to get down on that concussed pussy, but like he definitely wants to ask it questions.
But like anyway, so Kevin, James Marsden, who was a national treasure, takes her to the cab and like takes her home more or less. And his opener when he gets her in the cab is to show her that he's a Cisco fan. And he was like, nice thong. That seemed like a weird way to open up a conversation with someone you don't
Is
know.
that what he says in the cab?
Yes, it is what he says. It's so creepy.
What I mean, if you want to say, hey, I saw you changing in the car, you're clearly going to multiple weddings, you don't open with nice thong.
I thought that's what he said. Why are you going to 2 weddings in one night? That's crazy.
Nope. The first thing he said was nice thong.
Yeah.
It literally is them getting in the cab, scene of them in the cab, nice thong. Like
Yep.
that's how the scene goes.
Yep.
So you immediately know Kevin's a creeper. And I say that loving James Marsden as a human.
Yes.
He's horrible in this movie.
Well, and he then proceeds to give her a lecture about how weddings and marriage are stupid.
Yeah.
I thought that part was funny.
Well, I thought it was funny, but a little over the top, where he kind of really drives the point home to the point where it's like, she's clearly done listening to you.
I also think if you're saying something like wedding industrial complex in a conversation, you have been talking too long.
I say that all the time. I say it all the time.
Yeah, she does say that. Coming from a guy who drives the point home to the point where a woman won't talk to him again, I related to the scene, and I saw a younger version of myself.
In Kevin?
Yeah, being like, man, I really wasn't good at flirting back then.
So would you say you were a thong enthusiast?
No, not that. That's creepy. But being like just like picking, antagonizing to the point where like it just goes overboard and goes the wrong way.
So your version of flirting was picking on them?
Yeah, I was single for a long.
Yeah, okay. I mean, all right. Is this something you still do, Mikey?
Not usually.
Oh, we got to get those numbers down. Like we got to figure out how to make it to where it's no.
Oh, man.
Well, it's not. I mean, it's like, it's just funny. Like when you find that someone's so obsessed with weddings to the point like it's weird, you're gonna be like, like half people divorce.
That is the thing where she has an unhealthy obsession with weddings.
She really does.
Yes, I understand where he's coming from, but then she does counter back with a pretty decent point where he's like 50% of marriages end in divorce, and she's like, yes, relationships take work. And I'm like, that's a healthy counter argument from a clearly unwell person. Yeah.
This is also where she asks him what he does for a living, and he says that he's a writer or whatever.
Let's stop here because I'm already sick of writers being in these movies.
Yeah.
Like we've only done a few of these episodes, and I feel like one of the main characters is a writer every other episode.
Yeah.
You're right. It was How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days.
Mm-hmm.
The Lucky One, no writer in that one. And then this movie, which has a writer. So it literally has been every other one. Mikey.
And Shakespeare in Love.
So yeah, it literally has been every other one. Mikey, you're absolutely right.
And like, I've never met a writer. You know what I mean?
Considering that print media is almost dead, it is weird that we find this many writers in these movies. So she leaves her planner behind in the taxi, perfect for him to, make a story around.
Also, it's the planner of a serial killer.
Yes. And he does mention that her handwriting is like the Unabomber later. And I was like, yes, that is a sign.
It is a sign because Kevin is a writer and he idolizes the Unabomber. Those are all red flags, Paige.
I just meant Katherine Heigl should be examined.
Yeah. Well, okay, so he finds the planner and he like looks at the cab driver like, oh, turn around. He's like, oh, never mind. I
Yeah.
have an idea.
I'm going to gaslight the fuck out of this chick.
Tell me about it.
Which is what he does. He gaslights the shit out of her, man. Anyway, we'll get into it.
This planner has weddings listed almost every single weekend because he flips through it and we get to see it.
Yeah.
And this movie says that she has 27 wedding dresses, but that's not enough dresses. If she had weddings every weekend for every summer of her adult life, she would have had attended approximately 12 weddings a year from the age of 18 to now, which means that it should be anywhere from 72 to 120 weddings, depending on her age. So she should have at least twice as many wedding dresses.
So 127 dresses should be the name of this movie.
Yeah, pretty much. She is, I would say, 30, maybe 32, 33 in this movie.
Is she?
She's anywhere from 27 to her early 30s.
That's my range, Paige.
Katherine Heigl, get it, Mikey. She's mid to late 20s because she started that job right out of college and she worked there for like 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, she's been there at least 2 years, and then she says that she stayed another few years because she was in love with him. So I would say minimum she is 27 years old.
Yeah, 1 year for every dress, Paige.
Yeah, well, so that's kind of what I was basing my math on, is that she could be anywhere from 25 to 32. So anywhere from about 72 to 120 weddings.
But at this point, we see her apartment, and I was like, oh shit, she's like a CEO because she has a very big New York apartment.
With a full kitchen.
Yeah, and she lives alone.
Now, she also has a whole closet just for her bridesmaids' dresses, which means that she has another closet somewhere in the house for her regular clothes.
You guys don't have that?
I mean, I have a closet in my bedroom and then like a coat closet.
Like a linen
but
closet, yeah.
Yeah, but she has like 2 closets.
This is New York, which means that a 2-bedroom apartment is going to be anywhere from $3,500 to $5,000 a month, and she's an administrative assistant.
Yeah. So that's why I thought she was like a CEO of a company.
Yeah.
When we follow her to work the next day, which I know we'll get to, I thought, oh shit, she runs this company.
I thought so too.
And then we find out she's the assistant, and I literally wrote in my notes, oh, Paige is going to hate this so much.
Yeah.
There's no way she can afford this.
Her coworkers treat her like she does kind of run the company.
Well, she is the CEO's assistant. And listen, my CEO has an assistant where I work. And if you don't stay on her good side, your life is not great. So I could sort of see why they are very, very nice to her. That makes sense. But she does not make enough money to pay that rent.
Not at all. Her salary would be anywhere from about $40,000 to about $80,000 if she was like a well-kept admin person. Because like the more famous and high-powered your CEO is, the more they pay that assistant, because that assistant is juggling a lot of hats.
They're almost a gatekeeper at that point.
Yeah, but with that salary, she could not afford that apartment.
No, even if it was $80,000, there's no way she could.
Yeah. Now, she plops down on the couch to read the wedding section, which is insane that she just got home from 2 weddings and she's like, let's read about more weddings.
She's got to get that wedding fix after her 2 weddings.
She is unwell.
I'm trying to think from a mental health angle.
Because, Mikey, you're like a licensed therapist, right?
I mean, yes, I am. A licensed mental health professional.
I've always seen you as more of a licensed mental health unprofessional.
I am not a mental health professional, but I was thinking obsessive compulsive tendencies.
Okay.
And definitely an anxiety disorder.
I could see that.
I'll agree with that. I think she has a very anxious attachment to those people around her, and she feels like if she doesn't do exactly what they want 100% of the time, then she is going to like lose friends or family members or whatever.
Anxious attachment is an attachment disorder. Okay, unlicensed piece of shit.
See, you're just mad at me because I came at you with the unprofessional comment. I know what you're doing. That's projection. Give me a license.
But
let's do this,
I do
Mikey.
think you're right. I do think she has some attachment issues and anxiety issues. And I do think that she has obsessive compulsive tendencies that are manifesting in the care of the people around her, which manifest as weddings.
Here we go. Mom left her, so she has an anxious attachment.
Mom died. Do not say she left her.
Mom went out for cigarettes and ended up in heaven.
Oh, God.
And that wedding was the only good memory that she had from that time frame, so she like obsesses about it.
Yeah, I would agree. Because weddings are, most of the time, ideally happy events where you're seeing people that you haven't seen in a long time. There's dancing, there's cake, there's good food.
It comes down to what all of our characters in these movies have. Emotional boundary issues. And they're like anxious that people won't love them unless they do all these weird things.
Yeah.
So we cut to James Marsden's office the next day. He's walking into work, and we find out that not only is he not getting laid, which is maybe why he's such a desperate weirdo, but also that he writes wedding announcements.
Yeah. He writes the wedding articles that she loves to read.
Yes.
Are they announcements? Are like what? Like, because it seemed like he would write like a whole story.
I got the impression that they were not announcements, that they were articles about like big like weddings that had happened in the city.
At the New York Journal.
Right, which is supposed to be the New York Times. The New York Times, like, wedding announcements are kind of a big deal. If it's like a society wedding or a political wedding, they'll write like an article about it.
That's what I thought his job was.
Yes. So this movie posits a world where every woman in New York immediately reads the wedding announcements for his articles, which is insane. That's the craziest thing in the world.
It is, so much so that he has to write under a pseudonym so that he doesn't have like women stalking him or whatever.
He wishes.
And and apparently in this world, the idea of a pseudonym is so insane that Katherine Heigl cannot grasp it.
Okay, I need to make some talking points here. Okay, because you guys are, I get it. The movie's bad, but we gotta back up a bit. My grandparents would read all of the obituaries every day in the paper.
That's because they were saying goodbye to their friends.
So there are people.
I don't know if you've read the obituaries, but sometimes there's gold there.
There is fire,
Right.
yeah.
I will also say, I mean, I go by Mikey instead of Michael on this podcast for the same reason.
Oh, yeah? Yeah, you changed your first name from Michael to Mikey so that you wouldn't have women reaching out to you?
It's the same name.
Also, Mikey is single ladies, so it's not working, Mikey.
So's Kevin, okay?
Mikey's single and he's sensitive. He just told me after looking at my wedding photos that he would have cried at my wedding.
That is
So-
true.
I did say that. Okay, also, I don't want to be a Kevin apologist in this movie, okay? I don't want to do that.
You shouldn't be. He's stalking a mentally ill woman.
I will say, his wife left him for his best friend.
Oof, yeah.
And then his job became to write about weddings.
Yes.
Unless he specifically chose that job.
To destroy weddings from within.
Yeah.
To destroy a
Secret
wedding, you
agents.
have to become one with the wedding.
Wedding Dexter.
Coming this fall.
Here's the thing. We don't find out about his previous relationship until over an hour into the movie.
And then it's like given to you like it's a throwaway.
Yes. We also find out in this section that he stole her planner and he's pitching a story based on her planner, which is wildly invasive. He doesn't have her permission to do this. And it's just all around absolute douchebaggery.
It really is.
Yeah.
It reminded me of How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days.
I get that, Mikey, and I agree. Except for How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, they're both doing sort of the same thing.
Yes.
In this movie, Katherine Heigl is like just overly helpful and has no boundaries. She is not ultimately and fundamentally a bad person. She is just mentally unwell. Whereas Kevin in this movie is just using a mentally unwell person to advance his career.
So we cut to Katherine Heigl coming back to her office on Monday, and Judy Greer is coming in from a 2-day walk of shame.
I love Judy Greer so much in this movie and in real life. She's my favorite.
I think she's the best.
Her character in Archer is my favorite.
Absolutely. For the rest of this, like, next scene, she is wearing clearly a men's white shirt.
Yep.
And then she has used her bridesmaid's dress as a belt.
Yes.
It's hilarious
awesome.
looking.
It looks like it's just a sash from the bridesmaid dress, but it's tied around her like a belt so that she looks like the shirt is more feminine when it clearly is.
I did not notice
whoever
any of
she
this.
hooked up with shirt at the wedding. Yeah.
Now, Katherine Heigl is looking for her planner. So she's already noticed it's gone because she's obsessive. And she walks up to the front desk where we have Caitlin Ritter.
Jessica Jones. Hello. Everyone's in this movie, and I love that part of it.
She's literally in this for only this scene.
She's not, though, because she's the goth wedding that she goes to later. And
that is the goth wedding, you're right.
At the very, very end, you see her again. But you're right. She's only in this like one little scene.
Right.
Yeah, this is her only talking scene.
Yes.
Right. So Katherine Heigl asks her if she's seen her planner and then asks her if she has the catalog pages ready, which means that this insane excuse for a movie passes the Bechdel test. In this one scene. By the way, this is the only scene in the film that passes this test.
But it still passes. Yeah.
It still passes.
The Bechdel test is not like a high bar to clear. It's just most movies don't even clear it.
No, it's like the lowest bar.
I'm amazed that this movie does, though. Honestly, impressed.
I went back and watched that scene because I was like, I'm pretty sure that's the only place that it does. And it does. And it's only because she asks her if she's found two different things that are not a man. So this is where we find out that she's the assistant to the CEO. He comes in. She's clearly kind of obsessed with him in a way that is troubling and unhealthy. And she is basically showing him catalog pages that she has helped mock up to the point where I have in my notes, it seems like she is doing his job for him.
That's fair.
She does.
Yeah.
Yeah. That she's been his assistant for so long. She is basically doing his job and he is allowing her to do that. I think this movie really tries to make her boss into a bad guy. And I would make the case that her boss is just a boss. And the only reason that they're painting him as a bad guy is because it's through Katherine Heigl's point of view. But the reality is her boss has given her work tasks and she has accepted them, setting a precedent and not setting boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
Her boss has a platonic relationship with her because he's her boss.
Yeah.
And if he were to act any differently and act on her psychic thoughts because he can't read her mind, but like if he could and acted on them, he would potentially open himself up to a workplace harassment lawsuit. So every choice her boss makes within this movie, I think is fine. And they paint it like he's horrible. And it's wild.
I don't think it painted him too much as like a horrible person. I think the sister was the main villain.
Yeah.
I think the sister's the main villain, but I think they try to paint him as like dismissive and like, why doesn't he notice that she's in love with him?
Paige, I completely agree with you. Like, he does, I think, not have good boundaries with his assistant, but I don't think he's inappropriate with his assistant.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
No, but if your assistant wants to like do everything for you, like that's fine.
Here's the thing. I would argue he asks her. Because we encounter this a scene or two later where he leaves his dry cleaning slip on her desk and he says, was that okay? I know we haven't had a relationship like that up to this point. Let me know if there's a problem.
Yeah.
Which is him saying, I've assigned you a task. Let me know if this is an overstep of boundaries. And I think that she could have said, yeah, I don't have time to do that, or I don't feel comfortable doing that. And then he would not have assigned her stuff like that again.
Yes.
And can I just say that I also love Edward Burns. I think he's great.
Is that who that is?
Yeah, that's her boss. That's George.
In my notes, he's just store brand Patrick Wilson. Anyway, at this point, we cut to James Marsden's office where he's trying to pitch the story to Jan. And she's kind of shooting him down.
Right. Is that her name in the movie? Or she's just Jan
No.
from The Office? I didn't know what her name was in this.
I don't think we ever get a name. And if we do, it's in passing.
Yeah, she's his boss. That's all you need to know.
Here's the thing. He pitches this story as like a takedown of the wedding industrial complex. And I am all for that. But that's not what this story ends up being.
No, it's not. It's a love letter to like romantic weddings.
Well, no, his story about her is him using...
He's like, look, I found a person with a lot of issues.
Yes, it's look at this freak. It is.
It's an expose on mental health is what it is.
Yes.
I mean, she's not like, she needs therapy. She doesn't need like inpatient hospitalization.
Now, we cut back to Katherine Heigl talking with Judy Greer about how much she is kind of quote unquote obsessed with her boss, George. And Judy Greer gives her some good advice, essentially, of just like, say something or stop it, basically.
Yeah.
Is what she tells her.
Yeah. Also, there's a way she plays it where you can kind of tell that Judy Greer is kind of like really tired of having this conversation.
Yeah.
I also thought it was insane that Judy Greer was cutting her own hair in this scene.
Oh my God, is she cutting her own hair?
Did you not see that? She was like cutting her split ends.
I saw her her split ends.
she was-
Okay. I saw her playing with her hair, but when you said cutting her hair, I thought you meant like, yeah, just taking huge chunks out.
No, she wasn't giving herself bangs. She's just like cutting her split ends off. I was like, is that something people do? Like,
Cutting their split ends off? Yes. Ladies
Okay.
do that all the
Yeah.
time.
Todd, let's not split hairs here. Let's just.
oh God, I hate you so
Yeah.
much that I can't stand not being with you.
Oh, God.
I don't know how to quit you, Mikey.
At this point, flowers are delivered to the office and there's no note. And she believes that they're from her boss, maybe.
Which would be absolutely the weirdest thing that's ever happened at
Yes.
a workplace.
Yeah.
Yes.
Unless her grandmother died.
Yes, and it's
Yeah.
wildly inappropriate.
The fact that it's at all played in the movie like it might be from George, I think is inappropriate.
Well, yes, because he's shown no interest in her other than as an employee.
Right.
In fact, he showed no interest in acting in the movie. He just like looked like he's shrugging through the scenes.
You know who'd be better at it? Regular Patrick Wilson.
Patrick Wilson,
instead of
yeah.
store brand Patrick Wilson.
We don't need Bobo Patrick Wilson. We just need regular Patrick Wilson.
Yeah, who could just wander through scenes anyway, like he does in The Conjuring. So at this point, her boss pops back in, and she thinks, I think, that he's going to reveal that he sent the flowers. But instead, he says, "Did you leave that burrito on my desk?" And she says, "Yeah, I thought you might get hungry," which is crazy.
Yeah.
I've had people leave me food on my desk at work that I work with.
Yeah, if there's food around.
Like if someone brought in donuts or someone brought in bagels
Yeah.
or something like that, I can definitely see that.
It's not about like them and their affection for me. It's about me being like, I'm hungry all the time. So like I went to Taco Bell and I brought you a quesarito and I'm like, you're the best.
Yeah, I mean, I would understand that, or I would understand if there was food around, or if there was a case where she knew that he was going to work through lunch. But none of that's been established. She just is like a burrito fairy and just like randomly leaving burritos on desks.
Her feelings for her boss are like really not good.
They're inappropriate.
Yeah.
No, it goes beyond that. It's just it's
She's made up a relationship with him in her mind that does not exist.
Right.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very unhealthily odd.
You know what is, I think, even crazier than that is she has been obsessed with this one person for years, and she has not told her sister. That
Yeah.
seems insane to me.
There's that. There's. It's not like they hooked up like 2 years ago at the Christmas party, and then she's been obsessed with it.
Right.
Like there's never been a boundary crossing. There's been no evidence at all that he has had feelings for her.
Right.
Yes, she has the kind of crush that a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old would have.
Yeah.
I'm being very serious, where
No, you're right.
there's no concept of what a healthy relationship would be. There's no concept of what the indicators for that kind of relationship would be. And at no point has she brought up her feelings. She's just creating a fantasy world in her head. And this movie is treating that like it's noble.
Like it's sweet.
Yeah, like it's sweet. And what we kind of find out later is that he may have liked her. And maybe if she had said something years ago, they would have maybe dated and it wouldn't have been this huge thing. But she has literally created her own fantasy world and then lets it fester throughout the whole of this movie until she has what is effectively a psychotic break.
She does. When she puts that black cocktail dress on, she goes like, it's like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde.
That's when I liked her.
I know, me too. When she goes
Yeah.
nuts, I was like, this is the Katherine Heigl I want to see in this movie.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a psychotic break. I just think it's maybe a.
I don't know if you're qualified to make that judgment, Mikey.
I'll say that she reaches a breaking point where she
Yes.
begins to engage in self-destructive and just borderline destructive behavior.
Yeah.
So after leaving burritos for everyone or whatever,
It was just her boss.
No, not everyone, just him.
Yeah.
just him.
It would have been less weird if she got burritos for the office.
That's true. We find out that she arranged the front desk girls' engagement party, and that's where they're headed next. Judy Greer asks her if she wants to come over to her place to pre-party with some guys from another part of the office, which I think is Judy Greer's way of saying, he's not interested in you, let's explore other options. Because that is part of the problem with Katherine Heigl's mental state in this movie, is that she has built up this fantasy world to the point where she is ignoring other viable options in her sphere of people.
Yeah, I mean, she's a little off and Kevin's super off. I feel like they would work. I mean, and that's like, I think how the movie gets them together. But when he is introduced, she is like pushing him away. He's not even an option for her. When he is a attractive man, like James Marsden can get it.
Yeah, and then the efforts that he goes through to get her attention. So, like, I have problems with timelines in this movie, but, like, it's almost like he's been writing this article for, like, 4 months to, like, finally get her to go out with him.
Yes, the timing of this movie makes no sense.
But Cyclops puts the work in to get her to go out with him.
Yeah, he's a stalker. He is a stalker.
For an article. Not even because he's a stalker like she is with her boss.
No, I do think he's just using her for the article and then sort of falls in love with her over the course of using her for the article. But yeah, no, you're right, Mikey. His intentions are not good.
Yeah, well, but she rebuffs every man that talks to her as if she is married, as if she is unavailable. Don't even try.
Well, I'll say this, as a man, that's actually a pretty good strategy because we're awful.
Is that a strategy to get us or to repulse us?
Well, I mean, some people like the chase, so it might help. I don't know.
Those people are not great people.
They're people like Kevin. And listen, Kevin in a movie seems great. Kevin in real life ends up in jail.
Yes. So she turns down the invitation to party, and her reasoning is, I can't. I have to pick up my sister at the airport.
Right. I do love Judy Greer because she's like, oh, yeah, because taxis and like black car, like limos don't exist or whatever.
Yeah. Well, and I think this is her criticizing Katherine Heigl bending over backwards for everyone around her.
It is, yeah.
Yes.
And I got the impression that Judy Greer has been her friend long enough to get a little bit of a taste of the relationship that Katherine Heigl has with her sister, which is not necessarily a healthy one.
What?
I don't think Katherine Heigl has many healthy relationships at all. I'll argue that her only healthy one is her relationship with Judy, and that's largely because Judy's a stand-up lady.
Yeah, and I think Judy is trying to challenge her at points to break out of some of these cycles in her own way. So she goes to the airport where she picks up Malin Ackerman, who plays her sister.
I have a pretty big crush on her, too.
Really?
I've only ever seen her be mediocre in things.
Yeah.
Including this.
Yeah.
I try to aim realistically.
That's not realistic, Mikey. I like you a lot. But I don't like you, Silk. Like, you're a good-looking dude, but you're not Silk Spectre too good-looking.
Mikey, I think you could do it.
Don't lie to him, Todd.
Never give up, never surrender.
Yeah. That's how you end up in jail, guys.
What?
That's Kevin's philosophy in this movie.
How funny or rich would I need to be with Malin Ackerman?
Both.
I think she's married, so I think it's a lost cause, maybe?
I know. When Hillary Duff got divorced, I was like, this is it. This is my chance.
Hillary Duff? What?
Mikey, I'll go ahead and just say she does not deserve you.
Her teeth look like tombstones in a very strange cemetery.
Yeah, and I would bury my dick there.
Oh, guys, can I please leave that in? Oh my God, Mikey! Oh, gross!
I'm sorry. That was
Mikey, apologize to your mother right now.
Oh, Mom, I'm sorry.
Real talk, though. She got too many teeth in that mouth. So Katherine Heigl and Silk Spectre go back to her apartment. Oh, I forgot. So in the airport, Silk Spectre found a hot guy to carry all her luggage and then makes Katherine Heigl carry it back at the apartment.
Yeah, I noticed that too. When she's opening the door, it's just Katherine Heigl carrying all her shit.
It's just a bunch of hat boxes. How many hats does this bitch have? Just get a rolling suitcase.
27.
She's got 27 hats.
27 hats.
They're perfect for each other.
She has a different variation of the disease her sister has.
She's carrying in all of these like boxes and whatever, and not a single one has like rollies on it. And I'm like, how was she able to carry all of these on?
You guys don't understand. Her mom died on the 27th.
They're part of the 27 Club in their own way. Jimi Hendrix, Amy Winehouse, her dress collection, her hat collection. So they get back to Katherine Heigl's apartment where Malin Ackerman finds their parents' New York Times wedding announcement. And then she finds a pile of other wedding announcements that she's clearly Katherine Heigl's been cutting out and saving of people that she does not know.
Like huge. And they're big articles. They're like a page.
She basically tells her that she's only keeping the ones that this one writer writes because the stories are so beautiful, which is still crazy.
It's just like her boss.
Yes.
She has unhealthy attachments. We can just say that, right?
Yes.
But also, how many writers does the commitment section of the newspaper have?
I mean, probably multiple, because we do see James Marsden has to like follow a wedding to completion. In this movie.
Wanky blanky.
Like in the wedding bed?
Yeah. He's like, consummate that shit or it doesn't count.
We go to print in 8 hours.
So this is another time issue with this movie, because we know that they're planning this wedding for at least a month, if not more. And then she and George were dating for a while. And so I have to imagine that they've got other people.
Like, I thought her and George dated for like a year and a half.
I don't think it's that long.
I thought the whole thing from top to bottom, movie starts to movie ends, was 3.5 weeks.
No,
It's gotta be longer than that.
It's longer than that.
I don't know, man.
The boss and her relationship, they have a ton of scenes.
Yes, and starting with this first one, so she invites Malin Ackerman to her work party, and Malin Ackerman decides that she doesn't want to go. She's going to go hang out with whoever her people are. And at this point, it's pretty vague on what she does. We find out later that she's a fashion publicist, but all we know at this point is just something to do with fashion, and that in the past she's had Euro trash boyfriends.
Yeah, and that she just told her boyfriend she needed space.
Yeah, Rodolfo. She told Rodolfo that she needed space. So they go to the party. James Marsden is stalking her with her planner because he goes to the same party.
Yes.
She arrives at the party and her boss offers to buy them drinks and she turns him down.
Yeah. Oh, and Judy's like giving her advice on how to get a man, and it's pretty much just get drunk, hook up, get pregnant.
I wrote it down.
Okay, no, hit us with it. Yeah.
Judy Greer's plan is, in order, he asks for a drink, you say vodka soda, you down your drink, a little flirting, a little inter-office sex, an accidental pregnancy, a shotgun wedding, and a life of bliss, is what she's saying. But essentially she's saying, if you like him, flirt with him. You can't just brush him off and expect him to read your mind.
Right.
I have heard Mikey say something very, very similar about his future plans.
Yes.
Except the only difference is bourbon and Coke.
I respect that choice.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
That's love, baby.
I also like that she finishes it up with, how many times have we been over this? Which means that she's given this advice multiple times.
And she's the kind of person that takes her own advice.
She appears to in this film, yes.
Yeah.
Katherine Heigl counters back and is like, maybe I don't want to just be drunk. Maybe I want to be appreciated. And she basically says, what good is it being appreciated if no one is naked? Hilarious. Now, this is where her boss comes up and asks, did you get that thing I left on your desk? I know we haven't had that kind of relationship, so let me know if it's a problem. And Katherine Heigl at this point clearly thinks it's
the flowers.
She thinks it's the flowers from before. At this point, Malin Ackerman arrives in a yellow dress that is inconceivable. It moves and sparkles. It's like it's fake and was painted on. It looks like a CGI dress. And it's just all sequins, and she just like glows as she walks through this party.
And we find out that George is a raccoon because all he can see is
Shiny.
the sister Tess. Yeah.
It's the shiny. Yes. And so he sees her. The movie posits that it's basically love at first sight. And he immediately doesn't care for anything else except her.
As you would going out with coworkers.
Yeah, like, I do think he has an appropriate relationship with his employees.
Yes, and she is not an employee, and you are absolutely right. Yeah. Now, Katherine Heigl tries to stop it from happening, but it's almost like she watches it and is like, no.
It is shot like in one of those slow motion running scenes.
Yes.
Except everyone's in full speed, and it should not have happened to begin with.
Right.
Because had she told her sister, hey, I'm in love with my boss, and had commiserated with her sister, I don't think Tess would have done what Tess does here.
I
right?
do.
Absolutely. I mean, she may have, but that would have made her a true villain instead of just somebody who doesn't read minds.
Right, exactly. And I think Tess's big problem here is that she lies to George about a lot of things and doesn't read her sister's mind.
Well, Tess is spoiled. And the movie does set her up that way, where Tess has no problem with her sister doing everything for her. So Tess is enabling and reinforcing her sister's obsessive tendencies insofar as they benefit Tess.
Yeah, just like a younger sibling does.
Wow. I feel personally attacked as a younger sibling.
This has not been my experience with my younger sibling.
Thank you, Paige. Thank you.
But my younger sibling also has like a house and her own life and stuff. So
I feel personally attacked again.
But it's in this conversation where Katherine Heigl's introducing Malin Ackerman that we find out that it wasn't the flowers, it was the dry cleaning. So he didn't send the flowers. And he immediately is hitting on her sister. And Katherine Heigl has to walk away from it because it's upsetting her.
Yeah, but I mean, in all fairness to George, he's in a sea of attractive women, of which none of he can hit on because they all work for him.
Yep.
So now she is the first emotionally and professionally available woman who's attractive. She's like his type, so he's going to hit on her. There's nothing wrong with that.
No, he doesn't do anything wrong in this scene. The movie paints it as if him and Tess are the worst people in the world and just ruining Katherine Heigl's life. But that's just because Katherine Heigl has set up an unhealthy fantasy world, and she's functioning within it and nobody else is. And I'll be real with you, when I was younger, this was a problem for me of just not voicing needs or wants. And I have been in this situation of going to a party thinking you're going to be with one person there and having that person hit on someone else in front of you. And it is devastating.
It
feels so painful. And so her hurt is very real. But at the same time, it is because she has built up a fantasy world in her head and hasn't been telling people how she feels and hasn't been setting clear boundaries.
I've done that sort of stuff too. Like they're gonna realize that I have feelings. And they're gonna. It's like, you know, we're hanging out together, and they're gonna realize, you know, that's that friend zoney type of behavior.
Here's the thing: I had a Judy Greer in my life at the time.
Oh, good.
And so I came home early, and she was like, "I was not expecting you to be here for hours," basically. And I was like, well, this girl showed up and they were flirting and I couldn't watch him pick a skinny girl over me. I didn't need to see it, basically. And she was like,
yeah,
you just ensured that he would by leaving.
Yeah, you did.
And I was just like, damn it.
You gave him no other option, Paige.
Yeah, I removed the other option. It was my fault. And it, like, that was a moment of like, oh my God, how many times have I left? How many times have I assumed what someone else was thinking because that's what my fantasy world of them had said they were thinking, and removed myself as an option because I assumed, you know?
Yeah.
And it never happened again.
Boom.
Boom. At this point, Katherine Heigl walks out and screams on the roof, which... It, for me, is one of the few realistic feelings in this movie, but it's realistic for someone much younger than her.
True, but it's also not realistic that outside the back door of this club
Yes.
or whatever, there would also be a 50th anniversary going on. I thought that was insane.
She runs into James Marsden, who has her planner.
Yeah, and he gives it back. He does give her date book.
He
book
does
back.
give it back and reveals that he's the one who sent the flowers.
Yeah.
Which is also kind of crazy.
He's a stalker.
I know Paige doesn't like flowers, but again, we're already seeing a lot of patterns in these movies where people are sending flowers very often.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is true. And they
Very
just die.
quickly.
It's the worst gift. Send bacon. Or beef jerky.
Or any kind of edible arrangement.
Love it.
Or don't send something
Yeah.
to someone you just met one time.
Yeah, I mean, what do you send for someone you like commented on their thong the first time you saw it?
More thongs. I saw that you liked these. Here's a subscription to MeUndies.
You send one thing in that situation. It's an apology text the next day saying, I was highly intoxicated and I apologize for those things that I said.
I'm sorry I talked so much about your thong. Sincerely, Cisco.
But from what I saw, you had dumps like a truck.
What?
Truck.
So she is incredibly curt to him for no good reason.
Yeah, she hates him out of the gate.
Good instinct.
Yes, he is a stalker.
I mean, yeah, he is a predator in this movie.
Yeah. But at the same, here's the thing. Let's say that he's not a predator. This means that a person has gone to all the trouble to bring you back a thing that you lost and send you flowers to boot, which is weird. But there's no reason to be this mean to them.
No.
And I think it's because she's still operating in that fantasy world of like, get out of my way. I have to figure out how to get the love of my life back.
Yeah, I have to figure out a way to make my boss put himself in a precarious legal position.
Yes.
A better movie would do this more realistically. Like, he's an ex that she really wants back that's never going to happen.
Yeah, that's my best friend's wedding, and it's a good movie.
Are we doing that next week?
That is not what we're doing next week, but we should do that movie. We should do that movie.
I hate Todd's teasing us so much. No, but I mean, like, you know, we've all been caught up on, like, after a breakup where you can't move on.
I've done some really stupid shit after a breakup because I couldn't move on.
Yeah.
Nothing like Kevin. Let me just go ahead and say I've never gone full on stalker, but no, I've done some unhealthy stuff.
No, but I mean, like, you know, I've turned down a James Marsden or two.
Same. And it was a mistake.
Yeah.
I had no idea you swung that way.
I think he means someone who's
Yeah.
super hot. I think
Oh.
James Marsden was a stand-in. And listen, I've met James Marsden in person. He is super dreamy. I'm just going to say it.
When I say a James Marsden, I mean an attractive, I mean, they were women, but I mean like an attractive, fun person who was super into me and did like something really nice. And I'm like, that's great, but I'm really still obsessed with so-and-so.
So he asks, can I buy you a drink? And she says, I'm not having a lot of fun right now. Which,
Aw.
for me, is the first time she's been honest about her feelings.
Yeah, this is the first time she sort of stands up for herself on some level.
And that's where I would say, I'm the fun police.
You're under arrest for being too pouty. You have the right to remain smiling. Anything you do can and will be used against you to make this party happen. Crazy.
Those are your party Miranda rights.
The Beastie Boys fought for those, okay?
The right to party? How dare you? I marched for your party rights. That's like me when I find out that ladies don't vote and I'm like, women died. So he says, maybe I'll bump into you on Thursday, which he established from the planner was her bikini wax.
Yeah. Because he's got weird boundaries.
No, I mean, I think it's a good joke if you're like a stalker.
Do you think if a stalker came up to you and threatened to go to your bikini wax page, you would take it as a joke?
Unless he's got very nimble hands and hot wax. No.
I mean, I probably would have done something else like, I didn't want to show up to your hair appointment. Oh, God. No, this doesn't work.
No, it doesn't.
It's technically still a hair appointment. So we see that her boss and her sister are immediately hitting it off.
Oh, yeah.
They invite her to go dancing. She turns them down.
No, her sister even goes, like, shakes her head like, don't go.
Well, I mean, clearly she wants to be alone with him.
Yeah.
And the boss is inviting her to be nice. But so Katherine Heigl stays up waiting for them past 3 a.m. and she's obsessively cleaning the house. Malin Ackerman finally comes home super late and she asks her, is it weird that I'm dating your boss? So this is again somebody saying, hey, I've done something. Is this a boundary for you?
Right. Is this too much?
And then, is this too much? And then Katherine Heigl lies and says no. And Malin Ackerman's like, great, because we're having lunch tomorrow. And she launches into like, tell me everything about him. And this is really the only way we learn anything about her boss.
But we find out a lot. Like, we find out that he's a vegetarian. He has a dog named Gatsby. Like, we find out all of these things that Tess then uses as her personality to have him fall in love with her.
Right. Now, this is also where we learn about the company. Urban Everest is the name of the company. We have no idea what they do. It's some sort of catalog question mark.
It's like outdoorsy gear, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, we don't know. So at this point, Katherine Heigl is bragging about him like an insane person, like a literal stalker. Like she's been stalking her boss.
She has been, yeah.
And she tries to claim that he has deal breakers, I think to try and like get Tess to not like him. But she only comes up with he hates cashews and sometimes he doesn't wear socks with sneakers.
Right.
At this point, it's unspoken, and I think it must have been to try and keep this movie PG-13 or something, but there's no sex in this movie at all.
I mean, she got home at 3 a.m. There was sex in this night.
This is the only point where we have like positive evidence other than Judy Greer, where she kind of implies that yes, they hooked up and something happened.
Yeah.
And Katherine Heigl is going to like blow a head vein.
Yeah. They clearly boned, like Tess and George. They clearly had sex.
The next day they go to see their dad and he makes bear pancakes and they're very, very cute.
I liked her dad.
I loved her dad. And also, why not waffles? They're by far the superior breakfast food.
I agree. They're just pancakes with abs. So her dad asks, how long are you here for? And Katherine Heigl says 1 to 2 weeks because that was the original information she had about her sister's visit. And then Malin Ackerman says, well, maybe longer based on how things pan out.
Yeah.
And no one talks about that. Like at my house, that would interrupt to a whole big fight discussion.
Fight discussion?
Yeah. Like, why didn't you tell me you were staying longer? What's really going on in your life? Well, I don't want to talk about it. What do you mean you don't want to talk about it? You're staying with us. You have to talk about it.
Joining us is Mikey's mother.
No, it's like me and my brothers. We're like, because like they'll say something like that, and the rest of your family's like, what are you talking about? I was like, you can't just like say vague statements like you're staying in this house.
I think the implication here is that she's going to date George for a week or two and then probably move in with George.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not.
She's getting her hooks in, yeah.
Now we cut back to Katherine Heigl's office where she's flipping through her planner and realizes that James Marsden has written his name all over her planner like a middle school notebook.
It was every Saturday. He wrote in plans with him every Saturday, which is the day they go to weddings. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting. I mean, super creepy move, but that's the day they go to weddings, not together, but for their jobs.
I thought it would be a funny move if they had like been friends or had gone on a date and it went well.
Yeah, they had not though.
I have a very close friend who I had his comedy notebook one time where we keep all our jokes, and I drew a bunch of dicks in it before giving it back. So it can be romantic.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that story. Next time, don't take my side.
Don't help me.
I mean, there's a version of this movie out there in a parallel universe where some of this is romantic.
Disagree.
Like if they went on like 3 dates, then she left her planner after they spent the night, and then he returned it to her.
But Mikey, what you're saying is, had this movie been different, it would have been romantic. And yes, I agree with that.
What Mikey is arguing and is very true about this movie, this is 2 separate movies, because half of this movie with James Marsden is How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, where they're writing about each other. That's the whole plot, and that's the meat of the story. And then the other half is a woman having a breakdown because her sister is marrying the person she loves. And for some reason, they've decided to put those two things in the same movie, and they should be separate movies.
I agree.
Yes.
So she confronts him about it, and he says, what do you do besides working and helping people have weddings? And how do you afford going to all these weddings? Which is a valid question.
Yeah, because she can't even afford to live where she lives, and she's flown, we know, at least to Tokyo for one of these weddings.
I can answer this question right now.
Oh, God.
Okay.
One person in that company has access to everything.
You think Katherine Heigl is embezzling for weddings?
Katherine Heigl is embezzling for weddings, and in her delusional mind is like, we're already basically together anyway. He would support me in my life choices.
Oh, my God. I honestly think that's the only way it makes sense.
Well, and especially he brings up that her common gift for weddings is Wine of the Month Club, which is about $150. So that means that for every wedding she goes to, so for this summer, she spent about $1,000 just on the gifts, not even counting the dresses, which are, let's say, $100 to $200 each, and that's if the bride is kind to you.
She's embezzling. She's got that place.
She has to be.
You're talking about the wine of the month. You have all the dresses.
Yeah.
You have her lifestyle, which, by the way, her regular clothes are very nice. And then you have the fact that she had $300 cash to give to a cab driver.
Yeah, that's true.
I honestly think she's stolen millions from the company.
Yeah.
Because at the end of this movie, she quits on a whim. That's not something you do unless you've got money in the bank.
But here's the only time that the movie asks this question and then it never answers it.
I do hate that they ask the question, but they don't answer it. Like, if you ask that question, you've got to give me some numbers.
Oh, you mean like, let's go out later and
Yeah.
I'll tell you a joke.
Oh, don't, Mikey, no. We cannot keep referencing that movie.
We've come so far, like from Colorado to Louisiana.
For people who just skipped the Lucky One episode because you haven't seen the movie, first, do yourself a favor, watch the movie. Secondly, listen to the episode because it's fucking fire.
So she does say to James Marsden at this point, please find someone else to be creepy with. So here's the problem. Now she has revoked consent as well,
Yeah.
and he's still stalking her.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's a stalker. He's a bad person.
And this is where it crosses, I believe, a legal threshold.
Yes, I agree. I agree. And she's got documented proof of him stalking her.
Yeah.
So the next thing we cut to is his little brother from the Little Brothers and Little Sisters program, Pedro, shows up at the office.
Yeah.
I didn't really like what they did with the little brother Pedro.
Oh, the fact that Malin Ackerman is full-blown racist in this
Yes.
movie?
Like, yells at his face racism. Like,
Hola,
insane.
Pedro!
Oh, my God. I literally wrote, Tess is an idiot.
Yes. They go to Pedro's baseball game where we again find out that Tess is claiming to be vegetarian, where she's eating like a tofu dog with meatless chili, which
Oh, God.
What's the point? Well, and she's also talking about the dog that she loved growing up and calling it by the wrong name. She's just like lying in front of her
Yeah.
sister who knows better. And her sister
Right.
lets her do this. I'm not saying that Katherine Heigl is responsible for her sister lying, but she allows it to continue.
Siblings don't let
Yeah.
siblings lie like this.
I didn't think they would either because, man, my brothers and sister would have sold me
Yes,
out
me
immediately.
too.
Oh,
yeah, agreed. She lies the whole time until George, the boss, goes up to shag balls.
Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah. And then he calls Tess over and she says, are we going to shag now? Like, she doesn't know. Like, what? I thought that
Yeah.
was insane.
It's a funny word play that is bonkers.
Is it? Ma'am, there are families around.
I didn't
Yeah.
find these jokes hit very hard.
No, they, like Pedro in Little League, could not hit very hard.
Ooh.
We cut back to Katherine Heigl's apartment where Malin Ackerman's still staying there, and she keeps getting tons and tons and tons of flowers.
Yeah.
We're kind of cutting through like a montage of like her boss is always on the phone with her. She's his screensaver. They're going to family dinner.
But it's like played for like, it's like killing Katherine Heigl inside.
Yeah, well, at one point they're fucking in her house.
Yes, like I don't. Okay, so I would think that if, and Paige, just tell me if I'm wrong. If your sister, and I'm only using you as an example because you have like a sister that's like similar age range or whatever, right?
Right.
If you were into a dude and your sister started dating that guy and they were fooling around, probably having a sexual relationship, wouldn't that sort of kill that for you?
Yeah, that it would be strange.
Yeah, I don't like at the end of the movie when they kiss, I was like, ugh, gross. What are you doing?
Yes, I had a real big problem with it.
Ugh.
There's a word for it in medieval England. Called affinity. They accused Henry VIII of it because he had a baby with Anne Boleyn's sister and then married Anne Boleyn.
Oh, yeah. I forgot I had a word for it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. We cut to she's at the front desk girl, Kristen Ritter's goth wedding, which is hilarious.
Paige, also, this is the point in the movie where I lost track of time. It was like this movie goes on forever. I was like, am I seeing years of their life? I don't understand what's happening in this film.
I thought we were seeing a few months.
Okay.
To me, this felt like a couple months because we opened the movie. She was planning the engagement for the goth wedding.
But they didn't even seem like real friends.
That's the thing with Katherine Heigl. She just likes weddings. So even if she's not close, she's getting involved.
She's using these brides.
Well, yeah, where's the story of the goth girl being like, I don't know you and we work together. I don't want you this involved in my wedding.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, let's say even if goth wedding is happening pretty quickly, 4 to 6 months from that engagement party to now, at
That's
least that made
believable
sense
to me because with all that's going on with her boss and her sister.
Yeah, I thought it was like 3 weeks. I thought the whole movie was like 3-4 weeks.
That would be insanity.
I know. I thought it was.
Well, here's what's not believable about that is that James Marsden's been writing that story the whole time.
Well, he
Yeah.
could have put it on the back burner, but he's also going after her for 6 months.
I know. That's why I thought it was like 3-4 weeks the whole movie. Because there's no way.
No.
You would lose interest, right?
No,
Mikey?
no. He's not going to lose interest because he is a sociopath.
Well, he's using her for the story. But here's the thing. I don't think he's trying to get ahead and get out of the wedding section in the paper.
Right.
Why would he wait? Why would he work 6 months on a story to get out of the paper? And if they knew that it was going to take him that long to write feature stories, they wouldn't let him do it. They would be like, yeah, this took you 8 months or whatever by the time he actually writes it.
Yeah, it's a great story, but you should have written a book in this amount of time.
Yeah. Seriously, though.
I agree.
So at the wedding, Judy Greer notices Malin Ackerman and the boss. And it's almost like it's the first time she's noticed, which I'm like, you work in the same office. How would you not have noticed this?
Yeah.
Then we cut to Katherine Heigl's office, and there's a note that says drinks, Kevin, which is James Marsden.
And I 100% thought James Marsden, broke into her office to leave that note on her desk.
Me too.
And then Natalie explained to me that he probably just called and someone left that note. And I was like, okay, I'm more comfortable with that.
Given his other actions, he broke in.
That's what I thought too. I thought based on his actions, he's the one doing this.
What if he put it on a breakfast burrito, just like she did?
Her boss comes in and she's picking his tie and tying his tie.
No, listen, he can't tie a tie. This man is an adult. He's the CEO of a company, and he does not know how to tie a tie. That is ridiculous.
Well, and the second she was picking his ties, I was like, oh, he's going to propose.
Really? Okay, so you saw this coming?
Yeah.
I mean, why else would you wear a tie?
Well, why else would he be that worried about the way he looks? He's never expressed this before.
He's never expressed anything before.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen her do any number of things for him, and this has never been one of them.
Okay.
And it's a very intimate gesture to adjust someone's tie if you are not in a relationship with them. And I think it was set up to kind of, foster some intimacy with her to kind of promote her continuing to build her fantasy world.
Yeah.
And then to have it come crashing down when she realizes they're getting married.
I didn't read it like that because the way the actor Bobo Patrick Wilson plays it, but he plays it like he's completely disinterested in her. But he's like, hey, dude, you mind helping me pick out this tie? And then she's like, well, let me tie it. He's like, okay, whatever. He's like, all right, thanks, bye. And then she's like, ugh.
It's a loaded action. That's something a wife does. That's not something a random person does.
I agree with that. It is played like that is a wifely role.
Okay, well, sometimes at work, you're not good at tying ties, and you're not a CEO, and you don't have
Mikey,
a wife.
do you not know how to tie a tie?
I do know how to tie a tie, but I've had someone at work adjust my tie before. I didn't ask them to, but they offered.
I mean, I've tied ties for guys at work because they didn't grow up super religious like me. But yeah.
None of us were in love with each other or my brother.
Well, here's what I'm going to ask. Was this person older than you, like an older woman?
No, but like I have like a very like brother-sisterly relationship with like.
Okay, so but there's like an established there is nothing here, we're just friends.
Yeah, it's called work.
Yeah,
Well, yes.
exactly. I think
So
that's the point.
But that's the problem with this scene is he is like, it's work because that's what he should think because it's work. But for her fantasy world, that's what she's reading into it. I'll be honest with you, I would not just go adjust anyone's tie.
No, it's somebody who like we were closer, like closer work people.
Yeah.
It's not like someone I'm just like, hey, new girl, adjust my tie.
I also think that this is something where if there were like budding feelings somewhere where there was like a flirtatious relationship, that takes it to another level.
Oh.
Because it is an intimate gesture.
Yeah.
Your hands are right near somebody's jugular.
I mean, you're not wrong. It's just weird that you said it that way.
Maybe it's not that intense emotionally for me because I don't have a neck.
Oh my God. But either way, I mean, she does tie the tie. He bones out of there and goes to dinner, but he forgets his wallet. So she picks it up and like follows him to dinner. And I thought that the language he uses when she walks in and they unroll the "Will you marry me" sign, what he says is so pointed and mean. It's hilarious.
It's not pointed and mean. It's just practical.
I know, but as the viewer, you know what she's feeling. So it is pointed and mean. And it's very, oh no, she's not the one. She is not the one.
She's not the one.
And to me, Katherine Heigl being not the hot sister is insane. She is so much more attractive than Tess. Oh, Mikey.
We're not gonna. No.
This is not up for debate, you insane person. Just because Tess is more attainable does not mean she's more attractive.
Well, no, here's the thing. I think they try to ugly Katherine Heigl
They
up
do.
in this
They
movie.
do try.
She is wearing
Failed.
frumpy, crazy things all the time, and then she looks gorgeous in these dresses, and you're just like, who's gonna believe that she's like alone and sad?
Attractiveness does not mean they're the one for you. You know, like, he has repeatedly expressed that he does not think she is the one.
Yeah.
And also, this is 6 months into like their the relationship with his sister.
Yeah, it's weird that she still has feelings for her sister's boyfriend.
Yes.
Yes.
And that's why he's like, oh, she's not the one. This is her sister, which you could very reasonably say.
I agree.
She effectively ruins his proposal.
Yeah.
And she won't leave. Like she just
Well, she
hangs
gets
out.
stuck there. She gets mariachi blocked.
She could have walked towards the camera and out of the restaurant.
Yeah, she doesn't. They go to tell her dad. I don't know if you know, we get a close up of the ring. It's the same Tiffany solitaire from Sweet Home Alabama.
Is it the same ring?
I don't know if it's the exact same ring, like prop ring. It's the same style.
So apparently only sociopaths pick out that ring.
No, it was just the most popular engagement ring at the time.
Okay.
And those movies were not made very far apart. They go to their dad's house. They show off the ring. Her dad asks, does this mean you're moving back here? And then he gives her mom's wedding dress.
Which we heard her talk shit about in an earlier scene.
We did. And we also know that Katherine Heigl has an unhealthy attachment to her parents' wedding.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so she really cherished that dress and wanted it.
And she wanted the venue that her parents had.
Yeah.
And all the things.
Essentially, Malin Ackerman plans the wedding that she wanted, at least in her fantasy world.
Yeah.
Because she does choose something different later, which I do really like. This is also, I don't know if you guys, Todd, you might know because you've been married once before. After you get married, they...
That's not a dig, Mikey.
This is just fact.
Yes, as Kevin tells us, 50% of weddings don't work out. Paige and I have both been married. One of us figured it out. You guys probably know already which one.
100% of Todd's marriages haven't worked out.
Well, that's why he's got to have another one so he can get that 50-50
Gotta
split.
get those numbers up, baby.
Get the numbers up. Now, the reason I brought it up, I don't know if you guys know, after you get married, you pay like a couple $100 or something like that, and they preserve your wedding dress. So it's not just something you like keep in a closet. I'm sure maybe some people do, but they actually just like clean it really, really carefully, and then they like seal it So mine is in like a box kind of thing where you can kind of see the pattern on the top of
okay.
it.
Yeah.
But it's meant to preserve it for years and years and years and years and years so you can hand it down to people. So that's why they probably still have her mom's dress, although they just have it in a garment bag.
Yeah, it's like on a hanger, though. They didn't do that for this movie. But yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So this is one step too far for Katherine Heigl. So she finally goes out for drinks with Kevin. And she tells him all about how her sister's getting married. And he says, before you? And she says, that's not the problem, which is everyone's first question when she's like, oh, my sister's getting married. And they're like, oh, because she's younger?
Is that a thing? I've never heard of that actually being a thing.
It's a thing for people who are unrealistic and weird.
Okay.
I would not have been upset if my sister had gotten married first.
I think my youngest brother is probably closer to getting married than I am. And yeah, it is upsetting.
Okay. Sorry, Mikey. I didn't mean to offend you.
But what she says is the problem is she says that Tess is going to want her to do everything and I can't say no. And this is where he tries to teach her how to say no for the first time.
Which is sort of effective, right? He does teach her how to say no.
He does. Yeah, a little bit. We cut to her working on the wedding with Tess the next day where Tess is picking her bridesmaids and she picks Cousin Julie and Cousin Mimi, or she chooses not to pick Cousin Mimi because she's super pregnant and it'll throw off aesthetics. And then she picks Casey, which is Judy Greer, who she does not know, to be a bridesmaid just because she thinks it will look good.
Yeah, because Judy Greer is like pretty.
Judy Greer is
Yeah.
really pretty.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah, no disagreement. It's just a crazy way to pick the people who are standing next to you on your very important day.
That's what I'm going to pick. I'm going to be like, I need some handsome fellas.
Mikey, clearly I'll do it. It's fine. I'll be there.
Sure, I'll wear a suit.
I would pick Paige because she would require less layers of clothes. I'm like, Todd, we said no vest with this tux.
Why not? It's so classy, Mikey.
But you didn't need 3 of them.
and why are you wearing the hoodie underneath the jacket?
So this is where we find out that the commitments column, which is the wedding column that Katherine Heigl reads, is doing a special on the wedding, and that the wedding is going to be at the boathouse, which is where their parents got married. And what Tess says is that they were booked out for 18 months, but she called, and on the 9th time that she called, they had a cancellation because the bride slept with everyone.
Yeah.
And so they'll be getting married in 3 weeks, which is insane.
Yeah.
And Katherine Heigl is visibly upset.
Well, and then her sister just says, like, normally you can't get married this quickly, but I know I have you and you'll do it. So thanks.
Yeah. Well, she also says, I know that this is the wedding you wanted. And is that a problem? And Katherine Heigl says, no, I just didn't know that you wanted it too. If it is, I just want you to be happy. And then we cut to the yoga scene with her and Judy Greer.
I love this scene.
Yeah, and she's basically just yelling expletives while doing yoga. It's perfect.
I love that. And okay, so Judy Greer is amazing, but this scene is great because she actually does give some solid advice and then sort of does relent to help a friend by saying, fine, I'll do it because she's your sister and I love you sort of thing, right? I don't really know your sister.
Well, she starts off and she's like, your sister's a huge bitch.
Well, and she's not necessarily wrong
She said
there.
she calls her a selfish whore.
Yeah.
And she says, your sister's a selfish whore. Namaste.
Yeah.
See, Judy Greer's character is my type.
I'm cool with that. She's hilarious.
Judy Greer's character in Archer is my type.
There you
Wow.
go.
Yeah.
You want crazy? She'll give you crazy. Judy Greer finishes when she agrees to be a bridesmaid. She says, if she crosses me, I will kick her out.
Yeah, and then the yoga instructor like rings the gong at her like very passive aggressively, and then Judy Greer goes, I mean, there's no sign that says no talking.
Think about how good of a shape Judy Greer must be in to talk this much during yoga.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is another movie where I don't think there's any fat people.
Well, I mean, yeah, Paige, you mentioned this in the intro episode. There's not a lot of representation of that type of person. Yeah.
And that's why their wedding sucks, you know? So the next thing we get to, she is talking to a guy who makes cakes and uses way too much fondant, and fondant doesn't taste good.
Fondant tastes awful.
Fat people know what tastes good. Listen to us.
Yeah.
So she essentially gets a referral discount on this cake.
She like strong arms him into getting the cake. She's like, I brought a lot of business in here, so go ahead and make it and give me a discount.
Yep. You can do anything and we know it, and I would like a discount, please, is what she says.
And he's just like, you know what? Fine.
This is where James Marsden shows up to the cake appointment to talk to Tess about the story. And this is where we realize that Katherine Heigl is his *1 fan. And now she's finding out that the person who built her fantasy world hates weddings.
Yeah.
Oh.
And also she's learning what a pseudonym is.
Yeah. What I thought was really funny is that she was like, you lied to me. And I'm like, no, technically he told you the truth.
I know. He lied to everybody else.
He lied to everybody else.
But she is
yeah.
insanely mad at him for something that she should not be upset about at all.
It's because it's breaking her fantasy world. And she even says at this point, she says, it's like finding out that my favorite love song was written about a sandwich.
Which I think that's a funny joke.
Is it?
He shows up at her house for an interview, and she won't let him in initially.
It just blows my mind that she is like in love with Mark Twain, but doesn't realize that Samuel Clemens exists.
Yes.
Does that make sense? But she still hates him.
Mhm.
I just don't understand that.
Well, it's because it doesn't fit into her fantasy world.
Ugh.
That's the thing. He comes into her house and he says, how do you feel about Tess's whirlwind romance? And she says, couldn't be happier, taught her to steam flounder in the dishwasher, practically raised her.
Is that a thing? Can you steam flounder in the dishwasher?
It is a thing, but it's not like your preferred way to steam flounder. And if you're like a latchkey kid, why are your parents buying you flounder and not Kraft macaroni and cheese? Like, who leaves their children alone and expects them to pull off flounder?
And if you're going to kill and eat Little Mermaid characters, go with the crab.
What was the flounder's name?
Flounder.
Flounder.
He was
Mikey.
pretty pudgy. That would have been a real good fish.
Throw him in the dishwasher. Let's have a time.
Yeah. Heavy wash.
He notices the dresses.
And this is where we get the dress montage. We get 27 dresses montage.
This is the first time
Yeah.
in the movie I felt like anyone had fun.
Yes, but this is also where I noticed that he had pitched the human interest piece on her at this point conservatively 6 months ago and is just now getting around to writing it.
That's why I thought this thing took place over like a month. I swear to God.
Some of them are bad. Some of them are really, really bad. He takes photos of all the dresses. She does have a Southern Belle one, and he says people do not have Gone with the Wind weddings, and she says, I have been to 3.
Okay, that is a red flag. I love Gone with the Wind. I love Rhett Butler. That dude's a man's man. That is a red flag, though. Like, a Gone with the Wind landing is not okay.
Here's how they save that scene. Because they cut to the wedding, and the women are in like Southern Belle dresses, but the guys are just in regular suits.
And these dresses are not only horrendous, but they are racially appropriative in some cases.
The one was just a kimono.
The kimono one, and then it cuts to that wedding where she's ducking down for the pictures, so they're all the same height.
Yeah.
Oh, that was the LA wedding. That was the short
No,
dress wedding.
No.
There's one where she's in Japan in the purple kimono.
Oh my God.
And she is ducking down to be the same height as them, which is
It cuts to her bowing down to him, and then he bows to her taking the picture, and I was like, this movie's a little racist.
Oh my God.
But then they do cut to the LA wedding, which was hilarious.
Yeah, because it's a super short skirt and she's always trying to hide it.
Not only is it a super short skirt, but the bride is like 20, marrying like a 60-year-old leathery dude. And everyone is in like lace and like spandex, and it's so crazy. But yeah, that's accurate. As an LA native, that's an accurate LA wedding.
Well, that's insane. All right.
Then they have the wedding on horseback, which is pretty funny.
Yeah.
There's the underwater wedding. And then he finishes the montage with 27 dresses.
He says the name of the movie. Yeah.
I love it.
And he lectures her about using up valuable closet space, which is true.
Yeah.
And he kind of is like, these are gross dresses. And she counters back with, it's their day, not mine. And he says, what about you and your needs? She responds with, someday it will be my day and they will be there for me.
Right.
which is the saddest part of this movie.
It is very sad. And it also comes right as she confirms that she is Jesus.
Oh, yeah, she does say first, I don't have needs, I'm Jesus.
Yeah. Which we already know she's a little mentally ill. Like, I don't know. This is not appropriate for someone who's mentally ill to say.
We have a running list over on Cult Podcast of everyone who is claimed to be Jesus that we refer to pretty frequently.
Hey, did I make that cut? Because in the sacrament
No.
episode, there is a reference to me being called Jesus.
Well, someone else called you Jesus. You didn't call yourself Jesus.
Well, that's fair. Okay, I'm a little disappointed I'm not on that list, but that's fine. That's fine. We can talk about it off the podcast.
So she says, someday it will be my day. They will be there for me, which basically implies that the only reason she's doing a lot of this wedding stuff is that someday she can have a good wedding.
Yeah.
It's real dark.
It is very
It's a
sad.
real dark sentiment. The next scene, she shows up at Malin Ackerman's apartment, which is George's apartment, because now Malin Ackerman is basically living there. And she says, I need your registry list. And Malin doesn't want to let her in because she finds out that Malin literally has Pedro working as a housekeeper.
Yeah. Yeah, but she's paying him during his big brother, big sister time.
I felt weird about this because he is being paid for a service that he seems super psyched
He's
to
a
be
child.
providing. I know.
He is
I
a
get
child.
that. I get that. But I like mowed lawns as a kid. Like I would do anything I could to like make a little bit of money and buy something stupid.
I also think she's telling George that she's cleaned the apartment.
Oh, I do too. I think she's a bad person.
So she sends her sister to register for her, which is weird.
It's so dumb.
Aren't the couple supposed to do that together?
Yes, because you're picking out like the gifts that you want people to buy for you.
You're picking out the things that you're going to use in your house for the next 10, 15, 20 years. You're picking out the things that you're going to serve Thanksgiving with.
Yeah.
You're picking out the stuff that you're going to set out on Christmas morning for breakfast with your kids. These are important things to pick out. I mean, they're still just things, but that's typically what it is. But what is this store that they're registering
Oh,
in?
this is definitely like West Elm kind of style.
It's not.
Oh, I thought it was like a Pier 1 Imports. Like I thought it was
Not
like
even.
a low rent. Yeah, okay.
It looks like a thrift store.
I mean, it's supposed to be like a West Elm. I mean, I can't tell the difference between a West Elm and a thrift store at this point anyway.
I think that this scene was written for a department store because they go in order of a department store where they do kitchen stuff because she does the casserole dish, which, by the way, is a Le Creuset heritage casserole dish. You're welcome. Then they move to vases and then the rooster-shaped umbrella holder that will hold all of George's umbrellas.
Right.
But this store is just like a ramshackle, cobbled-together store. No one would register there. I don't even know how they have scanners because it's clearly a Goodwill. I don't know what they're doing.
They were actually buying all those things, and then they checked out at the end. They're like, that'll be $27.
Real talk. If you see Le Creuset at a thrift store, buy that shit.
But this is where she like cold reads what happened to him because
Yes.
he's like talking bad about weddings again. And she's like, oh, what? Are you like some sad single guy who like got cheated on by his wife and got divorced or whatever?
Well, before she says that, he says, I think you want a wedding and not a marriage,
Yeah.
which is some harsh truths.
And you could tell it hit a nerve.
And she counters back with, oh, what? Did you have a fancy wedding? And she left. And yes, left for his best friend.
Does she apologize? I just remember like the scene basically ending at that point.
No, she does. Yeah.
She says, I'm sorry. Do you want to find the ugliest stuff and register tests for it?
Yeah.
Which is why you register for your own shit.
But this is the part where he goes back and talks to Jane, his editor, and she's like, we're running your story on Saturday or whatever that next day is that they're going to run the paper. And he's like, give me one more week. Give me one more week. I want to talk to her about it before we do.
Right. And he thinks he's got a week. Katherine Heigl and George go to the catering appointment.
Yeah, Kevin shows up at the catering appointment and sees that Catherine is like super into George.
Well, before that, during this catering scene is when George asks Jane what her favorite part about weddings
That's
is.
right. Yeah.
And she gives him the answer of, when the bride is walking in, that's when I look at the groom. And then Kevin shows up. He sees the catering appointment. He understands that Katherine Heigl's clearly in love with the boss.
Yeah.
And so now he inserts himself into the rest of their day.
It's a real Kevin move.
And we cut to her driving with him in the rain, clearly at the end of the day of whatever they've done that day.
Right.
And he says, I saw it the second I saw you two. You're planning your sister's wedding to the man you're in love with. And I ruined an afternoon of you pining over someone you can't be with.
Which is
Right.
all true. I mean, I like Kevin's communication style. Get rid of his like stalkerish behavior. I kind of like how he like kind of throws it all out there.
I do like that he and Judy Greer are the only people in this movie that give her flat out harsh ass truth.
They're the only honest people. Yeah.
And he's a stalker. So like really it's just Judy Greer, and then he has flashes of brilliance.
Right.
So he's trying to get her to drive slower because she's driving like a maniac in the rain.
And they are clearly just in a car and someone is pouring buckets of water on the top of the car.
Yes.
Because you see water rushing down the windshield, but no actual water droplets hitting the windshield.
Okay, Todd, whatever. There is a saying called "it's raining buckets." Okay.
I don't think that's what they mean.
Yeah, I think you misunderstood that.
Yeah. They do hydroplane. They slide down a hill. The car's okay, but neither of them have a cell phone signal, which I thought was like, do you remember when you couldn't get cell phone signals and they're like holding them out of the car?
I like that they were holding them out to get water damaged as they're trying to get signal. Yeah.
So they go to the nearest bar, which I don't know how far this bar was because there was nothing around them when they skidded off the road. Or
No.
at least it didn't look like it.
There is some privacy where they skidded off the road because they about to bone in that car.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
but they're walkable to both coffee and a bar.
Yeah. Maybe they're just exhibitionists.
We're all 3 drinks from it.
It's true. So they go to the bar. They relax. She says that they're going to have one drink, and one drink turns into many, 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 many drinks.
Like they do.
This part of the movie is why people like the movie.
Yes. I think from this part of the movie on.
The best part of the movie was this whole part. And they could have made a movie where Kevin was a good character if they just took the article out. Like, it's all unneeded conflict.
If they took her sister out, this is also a better movie. It's either or. It's got to be either or story.
Mm-hmm.
So they get super drunk. She's grilling him about all of the weddings that he's covered. He claims he doesn't remember. She asks him what he likes about weddings, and he says, when the bride's coming down the aisle, I look at the groom.
Yes, he does. But before he gives a real answer, he says open bar. I like the
Yes.
open bar. And if you look at the guy who's in his close-up over his shoulder, that guy goes, oh, yeah. Like, he gives this one, like, yeah.
Todd, the guy next to them sitting at the bar reacts to everything they say.
I know. I love it so much.
He looks so annoyed the whole time. And I was like,
You need to watch that scene again just for the guy who's over Marsden's shoulder. It's amazing.
Oh, that's hilarious.
because he is just like, they start like flirting and he's like, no.
It's so good. He really does give a stellar extra performance.
Yeah, like,
That's
it's so
amazing.
funny.
He's at best a featured extra. Like, he's making no money. He has a story to tell. I was next to Jay Marsden in the scene, but he is crushing it.
I mean, they start singing Benny and the Jets or whatever, and he's literally like, what the fuck?
I do love that we learn in this scene that all it takes is one Elton John song to take a boring bar and turn it into Coyote Ugly in like 2 minutes.
Yes. Well, right before they get to that, she specifically grills him about the Keller wedding.
Yes. Oh my God. And I love that they set this up because of how it pays off, but we'll get there.
Yes. And the Keller wedding was like, the son had to come back from Afghanistan. It was like this whole really moving story. Then when he pretends not to remember, she's like, ooh, I like to be edgy and sexy. And he's like, ooh, did you call me sexy? And this is what kicks off their Benny and the Jets.
Yeah.
Horrible rendition of Benny and the Jets.
Because they're like doing a bad lip reading version of Benny and the Jets where they're like singing the wrong words.
But it's super
Yes.
charming.
I like it. I think it's great.
It's all right. I really like that song, and I don't like hearing it that way.
Yeah, I like hearing it done correctly, but I think it's cute. It's a fun,
Yeah.
like, we're about to bone moment.
They jump up on the bar. They're singing it on the bar. They jump down off the bar. They're clearly very, very drunk. And he says, I remember the Keller wedding. I cried like a baby.
But it's delivered like I wrote you every day for a year.
I wrote you every day for a year.
And then they just start making out.
Which I would like to take a moment to say that alcohol negates consent. But yes, they do start making out. And then we cut to them having that sweet, sweet car sex.
Oh, yeah. The first time you have sex with someone, you're doing it in your dad's old Volvo.
And it's played as awkward and not really all that sexy, and then they cut away from it. This movie has a problem with sex, clearly.
It does. I do like that when they lean away from the steering wheel, that's when we hear the horn. Whoever directed this scene has never been in a car.
Yeah. Anyway, we cut to the next morning. He's brought her coffee and she's like, I never do this. And he's like, yeah, you said that the whole time. And I was like, maybe that means stop.
Yeah.
She was drunk.
If a girl is saying, hey, I never do this, and she's drunk, you need to stop.
So we cut to they're in a diner for breakfast and a guy remembers them from the night before.
Yeah.
And he's like, Benny and the Jets. And she doesn't remember. So she's like, oh, I sang Benny and the Jets last night. And he's like, yeah, you did. And then someone else comes up and is like, oh, hey, it's you. And she's like, yeah, Benny and the Jets. And she's like, no, you're that girl from the paper, realizing that they've run the story.
And because every woman reads the commitment section of this newspaper,
Right?
Of course she's like famous.
Yes. And she slaps him, which I think is
Oh,
fair.
yeah.
Appropriate.
Oh, man. This is the second slap in the movie because Judy Greer slapped the shit out of her earlier.
That's true.
Insane.
Kevin did try to delay the article and not get it published.
He did. And he did want to talk to her about it beforehand. And when he confronts Jan from the office, she's like, well, I make that decision. You don't.
Yeah. And he does say, he's like, she got ambushed. She didn't know it was coming. But part of me is like, you've had months.
Yeah.
You have been stalking this woman for months to use her for this story. And at no point were you like, by the way, I'm writing a story on this. You don't have her permission to use her image or her
Right.
photos. You don't have her consent. You don't have any sort of moral ground for this to be okay.
Yeah.
And then Katherine Heigl gets home and Tess is flipping out about what the story says about her, which, by the way, is completely accurate.
Yeah. And like this kind of personality type does, she's making everything about her when clearly it's a much bigger deal in Catherine's life.
Yep. We cut to the office the next day. Judy Greer gives her a little bit of a ribbing about it.
Yeah. I love Judy Greer, though, because she's giving her a little bit of shit, but she's also like, hey, I'm here if you need any. Like, she's very supportive.
Yeah. This is also where her boss finds out about it. And he is a completely decent dude about it.
Yeah, he's great about it.
Yeah, he's in the article too. But he says he took advantage of you. Don't worry about it. Nobody even reads it.
So true.
And at this point, the drama around this article largely disappears from the movie.
Yeah, it's gone.
It's a non-issue.
It's a speed bump for like 3 minutes in a 2-hour movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the next scene we get to is the dress fitting, where
Oof.
we find out that Tess has now given her a script so that she can only say things that Tess has approved at their, it looks like the rehearsal dinner.
It is the rehearsal dinner, yeah. It's for the slideshow portion that Catherine has
Yeah.
also been assigned to put together.
Right, because she has all the family photos.
Right.
But it's in this scene that we find out that Tess has altered their mother's dress. And not just altered it, but basically
Yeah.
shredded it to use a couple pieces of lace, and that's it. And this is Katherine Heigl's breaking point.
I loved this because she like leaves and is clearly mad, and Tess sort of like waddles after her in the wedding dress, and she's like,
She says, how could you do this to me? You're my sister.
oh yeah, and she said, that was yesterday. Today you're just some bitch that broke my heart and cut up my mother's wedding dress. And I was like,
Yes.
fuck yeah, let's
Sick
get
burn.
this.
Yeah.
I loved it. I thought it was great.
But here's what doesn't make sense. I would not put her in charge of the slideshow after that.
Yes!
Oh yeah.
Thank you.
After that, you're no longer maid of honor.
You're uninvited.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
so she gets to the rehearsal dinner and she's wearing this black cocktail dress that means that she means business.
Yeah. She has definitely become Catherine Hyde. Like, she is evil in this moment. And I
Yes.
loved it.
She's eating pigs in a blanket and trying to force feed them to Tess, which is great.
I love that.
Tess is like, you're only going to say what I wrote, right? Which is a clever turn of phrase because she does only say what she wrote.
Yes.
But she made no such claims about the slideshow.
Right.
Oh, we should also say that she threatened to tell Tess,
Yes.
I'm going to tell George all of the lies that you've been telling him.
Yeah, and does give Tess the opportunity to own up to those lies.
Opportunity, ultimatum.
The pig in the blanket is the test.
Yeah, I think so too.
She gives her an ultimatum. You tell him or I will.
So she goes into the slideshow, and the slideshow is effectively very nice pictures of George and then every horrible picture of Tess that she could find.
Yeah, there's like pictures of Tess like just eating like ribs. There's a heavily implied threesome photo. There's like some horrible
with
photos
your
of Tess.
Eurotrash boyfriends, and then the final one is her literally in just a pile of ribs.
Yeah.
At first, this is why you don't piss off your bridesmaids. Then Pedro gets to say a few words, and he's like, Tess is going to help me start my cleaning business. And everyone's like, oh no, she's been using him as a slave. And then George is like, I feel like everything I know about you is a lie. And she's like, those pictures are really old. And he's like, your engagement ring was on when you were eating ribs.
Yeah.
So it means that it happened recently. And George walks out.
Well, and Tess runs after him, and then Judy is talking to Catherine, and Judy is amazing. She's like, listen, I understand that you like reached a breaking point, but this is beyond that.
She says, you could have told him the truth face to face.
Yeah, but she also says, she's like, it's very entertaining.
Yeah.
She's like, loved watching it.
Yeah.
But she says, you should have told him face to face. And Katherine Heigl says, I just did that. And she says, what you did was unleash 20 years of repressed feelings in one night. If it was the right thing to do, you'd feel better right now.
Right. And clearly she does not.
And then Tess comes back around and says the wedding is off. Kevin is there because he's covering the wedding. And she says, you used me. He says, can you let me explain? And she says, I just destroyed my life. And he says, I thought it was amazing.
Yeah, I'm proud of you.
I'm proud of you because I am also a crazy person.
Right.
Because all of the good advice Judy Greer just gave her out the window, completely gone, because he's like, yeah, this was super great. And he basically says that I knew this day was going to be hard for you and I wanted to be there for you because you deserve more than what you settled for. You deserve to be taken care of for a change, which is a weird thing to say to a person, except that in this case, it does kind of make sense.
I mean, it's weird to say without knowing them that well.
Yeah. Well, at this point, he gets her a Palm Pilot, which I actually thought was very sweet.
Oh, I thought it was a BlackBerry because Palm Pilots,
it's whatever it is.
Palm
but,
Pilots
yeah.
did not have like cellular technology. They just had like organizers.
You're right.
So
Yeah,
I think it's a BlackBerry because he actually calls it later. And this is where I think we start to see Kevin's next level genius because he changed the ringtone on that phone to something that would remind her of him.
Yes. Yeah, we'll get there. So he gets her a BlackBerry. She gets home to her house with all of Tess's flowers that she's left up because they were from George.
Yeah.
We cut to the next day. James Marsden's at work. The story did really well. He gets a raise, and Jan from the office is like, well, you got what you wanted, right? And clearly no, because clearly he wants Katherine Heigl, and that's been his plan all along.
I honestly got the impression that he was super thrilled to be off the wedding announcement desk or whatever he was on, you know?
Yeah.
He was like, okay, dope. Cool. Let's do this.
So the next day, we cut to the dad's hardware store.
Yeah.
He's invited Katherine Heigl and he wants her to work things out with Tess, and he has also invited Tess, and they have a like fight in the middle of the hardware store where essentially all of their issues from the last 20 years come out, where Tess is like, you ruined my life, and Katherine Heigl is like, I've spent my entire life making sure your life is good. And then Tess counters back with, I didn't need you to do that.
Yeah.
You chose to do that. Stop doing it. And which is, again, good advice. Way too late in the movie.
Yeah.
But she does say, if you didn't have to take care of me all the time, you would just be my sister. So maybe just do that.
I honestly thought this scene was, I think, somewhat unrealistic, maybe.
Yes,
but I
yeah.
thought it was sweet on some level.
The message was
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, exactly, Mikey.
Yeah. We cut back to her apartment. She takes all the dresses out of the closet. Her phone rings and she says, yes, of course, I'll be right there. She shows up to her office in a very fancy dress and says, oh, I guess you did need me to find you a date for this benefit, because I'm guessing there was a line cut out somewhere where she was supposed to find him a date for a benefit before he met her sister.
No, that line is still in there. In the very beginning, when she's being set up as his assistant, one of the things they establish is that he has a YMCA benefit he's going to, and the one thing he doesn't need for her to do is get him a date. But she needs to write him a speech, make sure he has a tux, that kind of stuff.
But like, how far in advance are they planning that?
Yeah, he's planning that YMCA benefit a year and a half in advance.
Anyway, so she is helping, I want to say she's helping tie his tie again.
No, she's just looking through stuff on his desk and they're talking.
Okay, that's what it was.
Yeah.
But he says, you did me a favor. I was about to marry someone I barely knew. And he basically says, forget the whole thing between him and Tess. I need you to print out a copy of the speech. And he says, you never say no, which I love, which is the most troubling sentence in this entire film.
Yeah.
I don't think he means it like a bad
No.
way.
No, but
he
I
means
think-
it like an employer-employee relationship sort of way.
It means he knows she has no
Yeah.
boundaries and he takes advantage of it.
And I would say this is the only time we really truly see that side of him in this movie.
Yeah.
Agree. But it does get super weird in the next 30 seconds because she's
Yeah.
like, you know what? I quit. She heads for the door and then she turns around and gives him a bunch of like, I stayed in this job way too long because I loved you and it just didn't work out or whatever. And then
Yeah.
he decides to go kiss her, which I thought was
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah.
It's super insane. And then she's like, yeah, I didn't feel anything. Not a damn thing.
But let's try again.
But I feel like this is also when you set up a fantasy world, you're creating a person that doesn't exist.
That
Right.
kiss will never live up to your expectations.
It will never. This is something people do with celebrities all the time where they're like, I know that person because I've watched them in whatever or listened to whatever or done whatever. You don't actually know that person. You've created a version in your head.
Yeah.
And the same is true for her. So it does not live up. And this is when her phone rings with Benny and the Jets because he set her phone to ring Benny and the Jets. He's covering his last wedding. She hails a taxi. It's the same taxi driver. She informs him that she only has one dress. And he's like, oh, damn it.
Yeah, which I mean, that's not a good look, taxi guy. Like,
No.
listen, you got a free show the first time.
Yeah, it wasn't a free show. It was $20 a glance.
Wow. Okay. Sorry, Mikey.
The wedding is on a boat. She jumps and makes it in heels, which is amazing.
Oh, I thought she was barefoot.
I thought she tripped.
She's in heels. She lands and then skitter slides on the
Yes,
heels
I'm not-
and then stands and then trips.
Yeah, she falls off the stage, or maybe not stage, but that's where you like walk on from the pier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
mhm. As she's walking through this wedding trying to find him, the bride notices her.
Because again, everyone reads the wedding section of this paper, so she's famous amongst women.
Let's just say BuzzFeed picked it up or something.
That would be more realistic.
That would be more realistic. So the bride gets her to make a wedding speech. And what I do like is she starts it out basically by saying, you were right and I just didn't want to hear it,
Yeah,
which is accurate.
very.
But then she says, you're not what I imagined, but fighting with you is the best thing that ever happened to me. Red flag. Red flag.
This is the second movie that tries to normalize fighting as a couple. I'll say Sweet Home Alabama's worse, but this is trying to normalize something that should not be normalized.
Yes. And then she says, I'll go now. And I was like, where? You're on a boat.
Yeah.
Oh,
What
yeah.
Where are you going to go?
What are you gonna go for a swim, you idiot? It's insane. But when she's on stage, she also says, I think there's a very good chance I'm falling in love with you. Which I thought
Yes.
maybe be more definitive at the end of the movie.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know. I mean, I think it's good they take their time at this point.
That's fair. All right,
That's fair.
Mikey.
They kiss. There's a title card that says 1 year later. We open on his coworker and Judy Greer getting ready for the wedding. Kind of sassily talking to each other.
The coworker was Jack Donaghy's assistant, and I was
Yes!
so happy
Yes!
to see him in this.
I just wanted him so badly to just be like, Mr. Donaghy.
I loved him so much. I'm sorry.
And their flirting was like appropriate and normal.
Yeah. Judy knew who she was going to be staying 2 days with at the end of this wedding.
Yes. George is there with Pedro. They see Tess, who is a bridesmaid, and Pedro is like, maybe I could get with Tess.
I'm a year older.
I'm a year older. I have my own cleaning business.
I'm a successful entrepreneur.
George and Tess kind of reconcile, and I'm like, he made out with her sister.
Paige, they didn't reconcile. Apparently, in this year, George suffered a head injury and forgot everything that happened before this moment because she introduces herself again to him.
She introduces herself honestly.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, he's single, she's single. It's a wedding, open bar. She's an ex. We've all been there.
Mikey, I have not been there, but it sounds like it was fun.
In the interim, in the year prior, he made out with her sister after she confessed her love for him, which is very weird.
Yeah.
That's a weird thing. But we are finally getting Katherine Heigl's day. We get to see a shot of James Marsden as she's coming down the aisle. And this is where I kind of cried a little bit, even though this movie's bad.
Okay, let's talk about this because they set up this, I want to see the look of my wife coming down the aisle or whatever. He gives a look like he dropped a penny in the sun and he's trying to find the penny.
Yeah, he's
He's
like,
in the sun. They're at a beach wedding. Like, of course, it's very bright.
He's not even smiling. He's like, and he looks around. He's like, huh? Huh?
He can't see her because it's too bright and it's like it's just too much sun in his eyes.
yeah, it's not a great look. But then I was like, I remember with my husband when I came in, and I was just like,
Paige, full disclosure, I started crying when she said, I think there's a good chance I'm falling in love with you, and did not stop until the end of the movie.
There you
No. Oh, I didn't come close to crying.
Now we pan out, and this is where we see all of the 27 dresses, and they all allegedly showed up for her on that day because she was there for them on their day. But I think we have a couple alternate endings. Yes.
Yeah, so I think personally, because there is a very big definitive break after her actual bridesmaid before the 27 bridesmaids, I think that that's all a figment of her imagination.
Ooh, I'm going to argue that everything from the slideshow on is a delusion that she is having in a facility.
Oh, I love that.
So we pan and we see the dresses, and then we cut to her just sitting at a cafeteria table, and she's drawn out all the dresses on pieces of toilet paper.
All of them are brown.
We
All
we have three really different perspectives because the whole time in this scene I was like, man, I'd love to be a groomsman in a wedding where the bride had 27 bridesmaids.
Especially when there's only like 3 groomsmen or
That's all
whatever.
I
Yeah,
thought about.
those numbers are real good for
but
you.
they're all married. All of her bridesmaids are married.
I bet some of those did not work out. I
Yeah,
mean, what
that's
are the
true,
odds
that's
on that?
true.
We already know because the movie establishes that 50% of marriages don't work. So there's at least 13 of them that are single.
Maybe 14.
But you gotta know that it's like the kimono and the LA wedding and the Gone with the Wind wedding. It's not the like passable wedding dresses. It's the wild ones.
I don't care what they're wearing.
I'm
Paige.
definitely going for the wild ones.
I care how it looks crumpled on my floor.
Oh, man.
I'm definitely going after Gone to the Wind wedding. I'll be like, I do declare.
Oh, I do declare that body looking quite nice. I am definitely going to invade your southern border. What is this, a Ouija board?
So
Sorry. I'm really good at like Confederate sexual humor.
It's a really small niche, but man, you crush it. And that's
that's
the
the movie. So I kind of peppered our financial facts throughout this time, in part because a lot of them are the same as the How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, where her apartment is probably at least $3,000 and she's making anywhere from 40 to 80K
Not enough.
a year in New York. Maybe more, not enough. People spend an average of $200 to $600 on a wedding if you're a part of the wedding party, depending on the wedding. So if she's attending 12 weddings a year, That is a lot of money.
Yeah,
She's spending
upwards of $7,200 a year on just
on
weddings.
weddings.
Not including flights to Japan, which are like $3,000.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
if you're embezzling, it's fine.
True.
I do like the idea that she's
Yeah.
embezzling. Now, James Marsden, he is an editor, which means that he is in the 50 to 80K range as well in New York.
Oh, man. They don't make enough to live there.
They don't. The other thing, too, when we see George's house, that's like the penthouse, and he's the CEO of his own company. But unless the company is like the most successful company in New York, he probably can't afford that place either.
So do you guys quickly want to talk some box office?
Yes.
All
yes,
right,
please.
cool. So what do you think the budget for this movie was? It came out in 2008.
I want to say this movie cost about 20 grand.
20 grand?
No, I'm sorry, 20 million.
That makes more sense. Mikey, what do you think?
I'm gonna say $20,001.
All right, so Mikey
Boo.
wins, but only because he was a dick on Price is Right. The budget was $30 million.
Wow.
Yeah. I know, right? It was $30 million. So this opened on January 18th, 2008, and it was number 2 at the box office when it came out. It got beat by Cloverfield.
Oh, the first one?
Yeah, the first one. It made $40 million its first week out. 27
Damn.
Dresses still made $23 million, which ain't nothing. And 27 Dresses beat The Bucket List, Juno, and First Sunday. That was the top 5 that week.
Juno.
I know, right?
Talk about a movie that made me sob buckets.
Yeah.
Yeah. But ultimately, this movie did very, very well domestically and internationally. It made $76.8 million domestically, $83.4 million internationally. So it made $160 million.
Correct me if I'm wrong. We've yet to encounter a film on this podcast that was not a mega hit.
Yeah, I think they've all made quite a bit of money. And it made another $46 million in domestic DVD and Blu-ray sales. So it made over $200 million.
Every sorority house in college had a copy of this DVD.
Oh, man, we should give them another. But that's box office. So do you guys think they're still together?
Absolutely not.
Yeah, same. I think they broke up shortly after this movie ended.
I think he found a new person to stalk, and
Mhm.
she realized that he had been putting her on a pedestal and had unrealistic expectations about their relationship, just like she did. And now she's off trying to find a more healthy relationship.
Oh, for me, it was much darker. For me, this became season 1 of You.
Oh.
Because James Marsden is not a healthy individual in this movie.
I think they're together
Okay.
because of the title card that says 1 year later.
Oh, I mean, yeah, but they got married. Sure, we know they got married.
I'm just gonna say heavy therapy during that year.
Okay, all right.
I'm gonna say that both
Okay,
of them confronted their demons, and they were like, "We're really have some issues and like a lot of bad things," and they went to therapy, and then they healthily got married.
I hope you're right, Mikey.
I'm trying to be an optimist for this podcast
That's the world I want to live in. But we are on the darkest timeline.
because he tells her on the altar, "Is this what you pictured?" And she was like, "No."
It's even better.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I was so crying at that point.
Yeah, I was crying at that point. I do think it's interesting to note her wedding is different than, because she clearly wanted to get married where
Yes.
her parents did. That's not where her parents got married. So she had a different wedding. So maybe she did go through enough therapy to decide things for herself and to develop a new.
Maybe there wasn't personal growth. Yeah.
Maybe you're right.
That title
Mikey.
card does it. But I would like the movie I want to see is the title card to the wedding.
Oh, yeah. So this week we watched 27 Dresses. It was Paige's pick. So next week it's my pick, and I think we should watch 50 Shades of Grey.
Fuck.
Yes, absolutely yes. I cannot wait.
I know. 'Cause-
I've seen it.
Oh, you have? I have not seen it.
I've seen
Of course,
it.
Oh,
I've
I've
heard
seen
about
it.
it.
I've seen
I'm
it.
super excited to experience it with you guys. I didn't read the books, but yeah, I'm super excited about it. I was walking with Natalie, my girlfriend, because we walk every morning, and I was like, "What fucking movie could I do?" And then we sort of landed on this one, and I got so excited.
Can I tell you, I have read all of the books.
Oh my God.
I have seen the first 2 movies. I don't think I ever actually saw the third one. And I saw the first 2 movies in theaters with friends on Valentine's Day, where we got super drunk and saw these with just bags of candy. And it was the most fun we have had in a movie in
Yes!
so long.
Yes!
So then we did it again the next year when the second one came out.
Yes.
So much so that a friend had moved out of state and flew back for it.
Well, this is fantastic.
If you thought the lucky one was nuts,
Yes!
you have no idea. You have no idea
I'm
the
so excited.
Pandora's box you
Oh my
have
God.
opened, and I am thrilled.
I feel like this podcast is going in a dark way.
I love it.
Love
I can't
it.
wait. So, guys, your homework is to get wine drunk and
Yes.
watch 50 Shades of Grey.
Here's a tip. Get a bunch of root beer and a bunch of rum and just like mix that shit jungle juice style. Mainline
Oh my
that.
God.
Get a giant bag of Sour Patch watermelon and a giant bag of Swedish fish and then put them in the same bag so the Swedish fish gets sour and the watermelon's not so sour. That's how we did it. And we rode the train that way and then saw this movie.
Oh, I love everything about this. So, guys,
Oh
that is your homework for next week. I cannot wait.
I'm so excited.
That's so
You have
funny.
no idea.
I'm so glad you like my pick.
I cannot wait for the texts as you watch this movie. If you like listening to my voice, you can hear me on Cult Podcast as well. And if you like listening to all of our voices,
Yeah.
you can also hear us on Horror Virgin.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you want to follow us on social, we are at Romancing the Pod Show, right?
Yeah, Romancing the Pod Show everywhere but Twitter. Twitter is Romancing Pod Show, SHO, because they have a character limit.
Yeah.
If you want to follow me, I'm at Paige Wesley on Twitter or at Rampage Wesley on Instagram and TikTok.
I am on all of the socials at mrandolph24.
And if you want to follow me on all the socials, I am at Todd J. Awesome.
And join our Facebook group. Oh, and I'll read a review.
Oh, yeah. So, guys, if you want to have Mikey read your review, leave us a 5-star review for Romancing the Pod, and we'll have Mikey read it for us.
So this is Beetle Dot leaves a
Okay.
review entitled "I'll Have What They're Having."
Oh, I love it already. I love it already.
Okay, bric-a-brac, bric-a-braca, firecracker, sis boom ba, rompod, rah rah rah.
Oh, my God.
Todd, Mikey, and Paige break down some of the most beloved or most loathed romantic comedies with lots of humor, insight, and fun facts. Can't wait to hear more. A must listen no matter what side of the debate you're on.
I love it. That is an amazing review. Thank you very much, Beetle Dot. You're amazing. We'll see you guys next week in our room of pain.
We're the podcast that you love in the streets and in the sheets. Join us next week for 50 Shades of Grey, yo!
Yeah.
Bye.
Oh.
Bye.
You complete me.
To completion.
You've perverted this podcast in 7 weeks.
Yes,
I
yes,
love it.
yes.
La 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 la